Well, welcome to Supervision. My name is Robert Farrell. I'm an LPC supervisor here in the state of Texas. These videos are designed and made for my associates that I'm supervising. If you are not one, then feel free to enjoy and watch. As you can tell, this episode we're looking at the topic of burnout. Now this is actually coming in two sides. It's one for the associate to focus themselves as well as to help their clients. So guys, I want you to be able to look at this from two perspectives, one for you and then one for your client, taking advantage of the fact that the symptoms are going to be the same. You will see them in your clients probably a lot faster than you'll see them in yourself. And this is where we have to rely on coworkers and peers to help us become aware of our own levels of stress and our own burnout symptoms. So having said that, let's dive into this one today. Burnout is, of course, the topic, as I mentioned, and we're going to be looking at some of the symptoms. These symptoms of burnout come into three categories. There's physical, there's emotional, and there's some behavioral, the things that we would do in response to the physical symptoms and the emotional symptoms. These are very important to begin to see and recognize in yourself. Like I said, you'll probably see them in your client faster because you're looking for it than you would be in yourself. We tend to deny our own stress before we admit to it and then deal with it. So the physical symptoms. Number one, feeling tired or drained most of the time. Now that is not due to issues related to having like the pandemic, having come out of COVID. A lot of people would spend weeks, months following having had COVID feeling drained and tired. I know when I had it, it was exhausting and it lasted about a month and a half. But it's something you get through. That's not this. This one is unable to identify the reason for feeling tired and drained. Frequent headaches, muscle pains. One of the things that I focus on in counseling is body awareness and recognizing those muscle pains, aches, and just headaches, joint pain, you name it, is another indication of the physical symptoms of stress and burnout. A lowered immune response, frequently ill. Guys, this one here is kind of a late physical symptom. If you are experiencing that, then you are already well into it. You've been burned out for a while. So this one here is a late indicator. You want to be careful of finding that one though, because it's harder to combat once you've reached that level. Changes in sleep and appetite. Very common physical symptom reactions, not feeling like you can get enough rest. Notice it opposite that of the feeling tired and drained all the time. These all work together. Okay, the emotional symptoms, I didn't really put in a whole lot of animation here because they're kind of all together. A sense of feeling of failure, self-doubt, helplessness, hopelessness, defeatism, feeling defeated, feeling completely crushed at work and in life, that hopeless, I can't get out of it sensation that follows. The physical symptoms, the emotional symptoms, they coincide. These things work in unison, and so we need to be aware of that. Some of the other emotional symptoms, though, would be isolating, unmotivated, cynical or a negative view of life, no satisfaction. And I ain't talking about the Rolling Stones version. I'm talking about just there's no job satisfaction. There's no life satisfaction. The quality of life feels gone. And then accomplishment on that seems to go away as well. Now you'll notice a lot of these, they're going to imitate the same thing as depression. So go back and review some of the symptoms in your DSM-5 about what those symptoms are for major depressive disorder and what's the differences there, because they're very subtle differences. A lot of it's about time frame, so you want to go back and check on that. Some of the behavioral symptoms. Now in this category I did put in, because we want to look at them a little bit slower. Okay, Withdrawing from responsibility. As a category, I think what you're going to find there is procrastination from activities in life, putting things off, taking a lot more time than is necessary to get through it, skipping work, limiting your time. I know a lot of people have this idea of, work is drudgery. We go in, we have a hard time. We look forward to Fridays so we can get out of work. But the thing is, if you're procrastinating going in and you're leaving the second you can, have to ask, is there something going on there? Skipping work, showing up late, and as I said, leaving early, also indications. Another aspect, oddly enough, is shifting the emotions of responsibility, putting blame on others or on situations. It's easy to do and not even realize that that's what we're doing. There's also a self-focus that is in the behavioral symptoms, isolating from other people, isolating from friends, family, coworkers. It kind of goes along with that emotional sensation that we're responding to it. Drinking more alcohol. Alcohol does increase energy level, but only briefly, and the simple reason for that is it's removing our ability to really think about problems. It is a depressant, and so when you take that in, yeah, you may help a little bit for a brief period of time, but in the long run, drinking more and more alcohol does not solve a problem. It actually makes the problem worse. Eating changes, changing how you eat, what you eat. We're going to look more at that in a little bit, but that one is a common element. Also hygiene. Here again, these behavioral symptoms imitate or mimic the symptoms you would find with depression. And so a lot of your clients you're going to be dealing with that have depression are going to have a lot of these same items listed there. And so if you look up there, right there at the hygiene one, that's a big one for individuals that are severely depressed, bipolar disorder. They are really burned out, and that tendency to not shower, not shave, not comb their hair, not brush their teeth kind of coincides. So you want to look for that one when you're doing your assessment. Okay, so the big question is, are you under stress or is it more of a burnout? There are some qualities here we need to kind of parse them out a little bit. So in stress, you'll notice in the aspect there, right over there. Yep, look that way. Follow the finger, it's over there. Stress, characterized by over-engagement. The person who is under stress is really, really into and involved in what they're working on. Whereas if it's burnout, they're going to be more disengaged. Just be like, okay, I'm done. Hands are up in the air. They're throwing in the towel. They're disengaging from it. They're burned out. The stress, the emotions are overreactive. They're heightened. They're elevated. Whereas in burnout, the emotions are blunted. They don't care anymore. It's like, whatever. I've lost the zest for life, you could say, in burnout. In stress, it's like, gotta fight, gotta go. In burnout, it's like the energy's gone, the push and the drive is gone. Stress causes urgency and hyperactivity, hyperreactivity, the desire to get it accomplished. I know that many people say they function better under some stress, and that's true. Many of us do. I know that if I have a timeline and I'm trying to get something accomplished, I will do a little better if I'm feeling a little bit of a stress, like gotta get this thing done. However, burnout has the exact opposite. It moves into that helplessness and hopelessness category. The emotions are blunted, the energy level is dropped, there's little desire to really engage. That loss of energy there that comes with stress moves into a loss of motivation, a loss of hope. So it shifts gears. So The stress itself can cause a loss of energy towards the end of that stressful situation. Okay, during the acute phase, it's very stressful, energy levels up, but as it prolongs and the longer it stays, it moves towards burnout, where we then find a loss of energy, moving into loss of motivation, loss of hope, loss of the ideals and the push and the motivation drive that moves us. Stress can lead to anxiety disorders, generalized anxiety, phobic reactions, that kind of thing. Whereas burnout is really different. The detachment, the blunted emotions of burnout is such that it's much closer to depression than it would be to just stressed out. Okay, it's just that throwing in the towel quality. It's the throwing up the hands and saying, I got nothing left to give. Burnout has that quality of resigned, it's over. Stress causes some primary damage physically to the body. Like I said, we do need some stress, but excessive amounts over prolonged periods of time leads to the burnout stage, where the primary physical damage is moving into emotional. The physical body can only handle it for so long. The emotional component of our makeup can only handle it for so long, so therefore it just takes over. Stress, if it's maintained at a high level for a long period of time, can shorten a person's life. Burnout, they don't care. And the whole idea there is that the burnout has led a person to that point of suicidal ideation, to the point where it's like, I'm done. I got nothing more to give. I have no ability to pick myself back up if I get knocked down again. And when that happens, it's really hard for these folks to pull themselves out. Now, let's talk about you as a counselor for just a moment. If you reach that point, how can you pull yourself up out of it? It's really hard, guys. You need to recognize your symptoms early and prepare to deal with them so that they don't hit. Because otherwise, ethically, you're not taking care of yourself, so therefore, how can you help someone else? Kind of a big dilemma. Okay, let's look for a moment real quick at the causes of burnout. 3 primary areas: personality, lifestyle, and work. Personality is something that is a lot harder to change. So if you fall into the category of a perfectionistic or pessimistic, the control freak, the overachiever, that one may put you in line for stress problems and burnout issues in your lifetime. If you're dealing with a client who suffers from those issues, you're going to want to focus your attention on helping them learn to be self-compassionate and how that would work, how to do that, how to show caring for self. Lifestyle. Okay, so what kind of things can happen in a person's lifestyle? Here it goes back into the work relationships aspects, not having time with peers and friends, setting up weekend events where you're actually having time with people that you enjoy to be around, okay? Not getting enough sleep or rest. If you're so control freak and overachiever and perfectionistic that you're cutting back on your sleep, then there's a chance, a very strong chance, that that lifestyle is going to lead to burnout, not just some stress, but full-on burnout. Now, work. I will admit I have experienced burnout in my profession before. I've experienced it when I was a first responder, EMT paramedic, and it's difficult when you get to the point where you no longer really care about the events that take place on an ambulance, and it's scary. Some of these here, feeling that there's no more control in your work life. You are no longer able to affect change in your work life. Here, I'm going to say on a personal recognition level, I've seen that myself in dealing with some companies where the company politics, the company atmosphere gives no level of influence by the employees. Not getting recognized for having done a good job. Very important. If they're just not recognizing you for what you've done, it'll wear on you. Let's just be honest about that one. If your job has unclear or over-demanding expectations, where you're not really sure if what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing, the way they want it done. For example, if you've got a shift supervisor or a director of a department who's giving you unclear or vague instructions, and then when you do the job, they come back and, well, that's not right, do it again. Without giving guidance, that can cause some stress, especially if it goes on for a long period of time and lead to burnout. If the job is unchallenging, monotonous, if it's doing the same thing over and over and over. I've run into that one, especially when I was doing admissions work. You see the same thing every day, one after the other, they all become the same. It loses interest. If the position you're in is extremely high pressure and chaotic, that can cause a lot of burnout problems. Guys, a lot of this is about dealing with stress and recognizing your limitations and knowing yourself in your field that you're working in. So for example, if you're functioning actively at a psychiatric facility at a hospital and you find problems listed over there with regards to the high pressure, the unclear, over-demanding expectations, if your job site is unsafe, if there's riots going on, if the programs are running into all kinds of issues, the clientele are violent, then yeah, you can have some real problems as you're dealing with your job, okay? These are things that have to be addressed. All right, so how do we manage? Well, there's three words that start with the letter R is most commonly used. Recognizing what these signs are. Know yourself, know your limitations, recognize when you're having a problem. I know for me, a lot of it comes into play when I become very inept physically. If I'm handling something, I'm dropping things, if I'm tripping over things, and I noticed it increasing more after COVID, where I would lose words, I would forget what I wanted to say, and it was expressions and statements that I used a lot of, and it would just kind of vanish. Well, I had to recognize I was getting stressed out, nearing burnout. Once you recognize it, then you can take the steps to then reverse it using the different stress management strategies and skills that we're going to talk about in a minute. They can help, they can reverse the process of getting into burnout. But there again, you have to know yourself well enough to recognize what's going on. The last one is resilience, and this is kind of a buzzword that's been growing in counseling for the last couple of years. Developing resilience is really about building up the preventative aspects of self-care, taking care of yourself. Now, let's talk about this with regards to your clients. When you're dealing with your clients and you're teaching them how to be resilient, I like to point out to my clients that it's stuff they have to do. It's not a simple fix. Resiliency takes practice and it takes some intentional effort. Okay, we're going to be looking in a moment at mindfulness, meditation practices, and some other things. You have to put these into use on a daily basis before you get stressed out and burned out. Okay, and so we have to tell them that, we have to teach them that, giving them the practice in session or in group if you're at a hospital, using that meditation time, teaching that skill. It can be used there to reverse and then also establish the habit of developing resiliency. Okay, Self-care, we're looking at aspects here that focus on seeking help, making priorities, exercise, food, mindfulness, and meditation. Very common. I'm not going to be teaching anything right now that you don't already know. We have to use them. We have to utilize these things. The same with our clients. When you're talking to them and teaching them about their stress, about their burnout, they're in it. All we're doing is reminding them what'll help get them back on the road to health and functioning and quality of life aspects. So seeking help. I love these images in there. They're really funny, they're silly, and at the same time, they kind of say a lot. When we get help, you go to someone and you go, hey, can you help? I need help. I'm having a problem. When you're dealing with a coworker and there's an argument, notice the two chickens there that are kind of flapping at each other. Even though that may not seem very helpful at that moment, a little bit of conflict is sometimes okay, especially when we can come to the realization that we're in this together. You're working with a coworker, okay? Now let's flip this on the ear and with regards to not you, but with regards to your client. How would this apply to them? Well, simply stated, we teach them to do the same thing, seek help. They're getting counseling, they're getting psychiatry, they're getting resources to help them at home, they're getting some time off. Talk to them about all the different topics we're going to talk about here in a minute with regards to how to care for yourself. Here again, we are teaching them what we have to practice, okay? This is very important to do that. As a counselor, if you realize you're having problems, you have the responsibility of seeking help for those problems. So I'll drop it at that one. Okay, prioritize. Guys, this one is really hard to do. Setting up and organizing your time frame. Recognizing that if you can prioritize your workday, triaging what you need to get done, looking at the timetables, setting aside the time for work, setting aside the time to go eat, and I don't mean sitting there at your desk eating, I'm talking about actually eating. Setting aside some time separate from work to enjoy a meal. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I keep food on my desk. This is not a commercial for anything, but I do keep cans of soup. I like them that way. I like them cold. I have no problems with that. I have them and a spoon that I keep. When I do it at my desk, I do not do work at that point in time. I switch over and I put some music on. I put YouTube videos, Amazon Prime. I do something to distract my mind, and then I also enjoy the food itself. They're, low in calories if possible. You want to, prioritize how you're looking at your health and in that way. Prioritizing time for rest, guys, so important. There's nothing better than setting a time on Saturdays or Sundays when you're not at work. Now, if you work on the weekends during your days off, set aside some time and actually get some rest. The image there I put up of a hammock, absolutely amazing. When I found that image, I was like, you know what? I need to get me one of them for my backyard because it would be great to just sit there and completely chill out. The other aspect is prioritizing art and giving yourself that zest for life. Doing things that you enjoy to do. Have time for hobbies. Now, if you're working with a client who says they don't have any, they never have had any, they don't want to have any, then I think what we're doing there is looking back at that aspect of responsibility, pushing it off, not taking responsibility for the self. But that's another topic for another video later on. All right, exercise. Okay, kind of like with that prioritizing, we want to prioritize and put time in our daily workout regimen for the things we do for ourselves. It can take any format. I know a lot of folks that just love to go to the gym and get on the treadmill. Now, I will admit, I got back into the gym after the pandemic's over, and I love hitting the treadmill. I tried doing it myself at home, and it just didn't work. Bike riding, lifting weights, martial arts, you name it. Whatever works best for you to exercise, to move the body, to expel that energy, to get rid of the negative aspects of stress. Do it before it's too late. That's the preemptive strike. That's what makes it prophylactic. That's what makes it a preventative to the consequences of this negative stress that builds up and accumulates. Prioritize the exercise. Make it a part of your daily routine. Food. Now, you'll notice there I got what would be absolutely looks like amazing cupcakes. Those are what you don't want to eat. You don't want to have the high carb, high sugar kind of foods. They look great. Now, if you're in a hospital environment, there is that stuff all the time in hospital environments. Somebody's always bringing in junk food. Not the best for you. Tastes amazing, but it will actually increase your stress responses, the cortisol levels, and it'll make things worse in the long run, because all it does is give you a sugar spike and then you can crash. What you need is what's there, which you'll see is the fruit, the nuts. There's plenty of sugars in it, but they're different sugars. They do give you that sugar boost without the crash so much. There's also better fiber in it. It's kind of off the topic of food, but not completely. Food helps in other ways, fiber related. If you need me to explain that, we can talk in face-to-face or over the phone on that one. In any case, food is very important. You got to get the right amount, you got to get the right colors, the right types. You need a nice broad range and diversity there. Okay, meditation and mindfulness. This is all I've got for an image, and I'm not going to say anything else other than meditation is not having to sit cross-legged on a pillow with your legs folded and making the Om sound of the universe. It is simply setting aside time to allow yourself to focus on simplicity, breathing, calmness, allowing the mind, if it wants to wander, let it wander, but counting the seconds of the breathing, thinking of a difficult question, going through a scriptural reference and meditating on a passage of your spiritual book, using a reflective book, whatever works for you. Everybody's different, okay? Using a guided imagery. Now there's tons of stuff on YouTube about meditation and mindfulness, and there's so much out there. You got to find the one that works, okay? So enough said there. Now, okay, so all of this information that I've shared came from these websites. I did not do a ton of research, didn't have to. The Centers for Disease Control have some excellent information about stress, how we get it, where it comes from, and how to cope with it. The National Institute on Health, NIH, has a great website as well. They actually got a lot of information on it, as does the World Health Organization, which, interestingly enough, the World Health Organization has identified stress, work stress, and burnout as a major mental health issue in the world. So if they're identifying it as being pretty severe and pretty powerful, then as a counselor we need to be aware of it for ourselves and recognizing our own, as well as helping our clients recognize theirs. Okay, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, that one has excellent information about stress and burnout. Definitely, I would say feel free, and you probably need to look at these. For those of you that are my associates, these are some great websites to educate yourself about the signs and symptoms. Don't just go with this one video on stress and burnout. You want to educate yourself more. This is a topic that is really why the clients come to us in the first place. If you can understand their stress, if you can understand their burnout, as well as your own, then you'll be able to help them get to the healthy point that they need to get to. So guys, this is a major topic. So having said that, we're kind of wrapping up at this point. Only been 30 minutes so far in this video. It's about the average length of some of my videos. Burnout. Guys, you're going to face burnout at some point in your career. That's why this is an important topic to discuss. Also, you're going to be running into everybody else's burnout. You're going to see it on a daily basis. If you're working at the hospitals, if you're at a PHP or an IOP, a chemical dependency program, if you're in private practice, you're going to be dealing with people and their levels of stress and burnout on a daily basis. This is an important topic. I don't think that I gave it enough attention for this one video because there's so much that needs to be looked at and covered. Educate yourself. Go study more about this, the physical reactions, what happens to the blood pressure, what happens to pulse rate, what happens to the pupils. All of these things and our physical reactions to our stress levels. Become more aware of it. And then how do you recognize it in yourself? And then be able to take all that information and help your clients recognizing it for themselves. It's a very important skill to translate that into. I do want to wrap up by saying there are ethical aspects of recognizing your burnout, recognizing your limitations. Guys, you got to take care of yourself. This reminds me, go back and watch the video that I made on self-care. This is really, really connected to that. This is a part of developing yourself as a counselor, as a clinician, and then how to help others develop their resiliency in their stress, their burnout. So, okay, there we are. As I close, I want to say thanks for showing up for supervision. I will be seeing you in face-to-face sessions or in group session as we get those rolling in the next week or two. For those that are not my direct LPC associate, I hope this was helpful for you guys, and more importantly, I hope you're able to grow from it, and definitely go back and look at the slide on the different websites. I'm telling you, there is so much out there. Just do a search engine and you will be amazed what comes up. You want to use good source material though. There are some quacky stuff out there. Okay, that's it for this session, and I'll see everybody in our regular sessions. Until then, keep doing what you're doing and stay ethical.